He hasn't spoken a word in 4 years. The words echoed through the polished marble hall like a cold whisper, freezing the air between the chandeliers and the scent of roasted coffee beans. Ethan Sterling, billionaire CEO of Sterling Technologies, stood stiff in the center of the room, a tall frame clad in a tailored navy suit, his gaze fixed on the small figure sitting silently at the corner table. The boy, Noah, his 9-year-old son, had always been different, but the silence stretched longer than any parent could have imagined. The room smelled faintly of vanilla and lemon polish, every silver fork and glass sparkling under the soft glow of the high-end hotel lighting. Guests moved cautiously, aware of the fragile tension that lingered, their whispers barely audible above the soft hum of a distant elevator. Maya Brooks, a 27-year-old waitress with quiet confidence, moved with practiced precision, her black apron swishing softly around her knees as she carried a tray of untouched teacups toward the table where Noah sat. She didn't rush. She didn't glance up at Ethan. Her almond-shaped eyes, warm but alert, scanned the small, empty space between them. The boy's hands rested on the table, fingers tapping lightly against the wooden surface, a rhythm that seemed like a heartbeat echoing the years of unspoken words. Ethan's chest tightened with each tick of time, the realization settling in that money, power, influence, none of it could coax his son into speaking. The noise of the bustling dining room faded into a distant murmur as Maya lowered herself to a chair beside Noah without a word, the quiet click of her shoes on the polished floor punctuating the stillness. The air felt heavier, charged with anticipation, like the pause before a storm breaks over the city skyline. She arranged a few sugar packets into a simple shape, a small star on the table, her hands steady, movements deliberate, almost meditative. Noah's eyes flickered toward the simple design, a spark of curiosity in the shadow of years of silence. Ethan watched, unable to step forward, as Maya simply smiled, a small, unassuming curve of lips that radiated calm. She didn't ask him to speak. She didn't coax him. She waited, letting the quiet fill the space between them, letting it stretch and breathe. Time moved differently here, each second a gentle pulse that drew Noah's attention, his small hand reaching toward the sugar star, tentative at first, then with growing confidence. The subtle gesture, nearly imperceptible, sent a wave of tension crashing through Ethan, whose eyes misted at the simplicity of the moment. Around them, the room seemed to hold its collective breath, as if the chandeliers themselves were leaning closer to witness what was unfolding. The air smelled faintly of lemon polish and fresh pastries, a calm contrast to the storm of emotions surging within Ethan. He had built empires, closed multi-billion-dollar deals, commanded rooms of influential people, yet here he was powerless, humbled by a quiet woman who chose to sit down and be present. The boy's fingers lingered over the star, a slow, tentative smile crossing his face, and in that fleeting moment, years of unspoken words seemed to hang in the balance, waiting for someone to notice, waiting for someone to truly see. Maya's presence, steady and unassuming, was a quiet beacon, and Ethan felt an unfamiliar tightness in his chest as he realized that the path to his son's voice did not lie in money, lectures, or authority, but in patience, empathy, and the courage to simply sit and wait. The soft clinking of teacups, the whisper of movement around them, all faded as the focus narrowed to the boy and the waitress, two souls bridging a gap that wealth and privilege had never managed to span, a silent understanding forming in the space between, and for the first time in 4 long years, the world held its breath, watching a small hand reach out and a connection begin to blossom where silence had once ruled unchallenged. The teacups sat quietly on the table, their delicate rims catching the soft glow of the chandelier above. Yet the room felt almost suspended in time, a stillness that magnified the subtle sounds of fingers tracing the wooden surface. Noah's eyes, wide and uncertain, followed the gentle movements of Maya's hands as she arranged a few more sugar packets into a loose pattern, a simple game of shapes that carried no pressure, no demand, just an invitation without words. Ethan Sterling remained near the edge of the room, his posture rigid, hands loosely clasped in front of him, every muscle taut with the weight of his own helplessness, observing the silent dialogue unfolding before him. The gentle hum of the air conditioning and the muted clinks of cutlery in the distance became the backdrop to a profound quiet, where every small gesture mattered, and every breath seemed to count. Maya's gaze never left Noah, her eyes soft yet attentive, capturing every micro-expression, every hesitation, every tiny shift of the boy's body as he considered reaching out, the room shrinking around him, the guests fading into the periphery as the moment between them expanded. Ethan could see the subtle tension in Noah's shoulders, the way he leaned slightly back, wary yet curious, and it brought an unfamiliar tightness to his chest, a mix of anticipation, fear, and awe. For years he had hired tutors, therapists, and specialists who had all tried and failed to break the wall of silence around his son. But this quiet woman, this waitress, seemed to have found a way to communicate without words, a bridge made of patience and empathy, and he could not look away. A small, hesitant movement, Noah's hand inching toward one of the shapes Maya had formed, sent a ripple through Ethan's mind, a mix of disbelief and hope, as the boy paused, fingers hovering above the table, eyes meeting hers for a brief second, and then retreating slightly, a tentative acknowledgement of presence rather than command. Maya responded with the barest of nods, a subtle encouragement, her movements deliberate and unhurried, demonstrating that there was no rush, no expectation, only acceptance, and the boy's small, cautious smile was like the faintest flicker of dawn breaking a long night. Around them, the light shifted slightly as the late afternoon sun filtered through the tall windows, casting elongated shadows across the floor and highlighting the intensity in Ethan's eyes as he watched, understanding more fully than ever that connection did not require authority, money, or status. Only genuine presence and the willingness to meet another where they were. Noah's breathing, slow and deliberate, mirrored the rhythm of the room, a fragile pattern building in tandem with Maya's calm demeanor, and with each passing second, the invisible barrier between them seemed to soften, a subtle thawing of years of isolation. Ethan's thoughts raced as he reflected on the countless resources he had poured into every imaginable solution. Yet here, in this ordinary yet extraordinary space, the extraordinary lay in the simple act of sitting, waiting, and watching, an intimacy that did not demand attention but invited it, that did not coerce but welcomed, and the profound realization of that simplicity hit him with the force of clarity. The sunlight glinted off the polished floorboards as Noah's fingers finally touched a packet, his small movement deliberate, exploring, testing, a cautious step into interaction, and Maya's gentle smile widened just enough to acknowledge the gesture, a silent affirmation that it was safe, that it was enough, and that for the first time in years, Noah had chosen to respond on his own terms. Ethan exhaled slowly, the tightness in his chest easing slightly, a lump forming in his throat as he recognized the extraordinary patience and understanding that had made this moment possible, realizing that all the wealth and power in the world could not have achieved this connection without the subtle wisdom of someone who understood that listening often spoke louder than instructing, and that empathy could open doors that authority never could. The room remained quiet, yet filled with an intensity that transcended the physical space, a tension softened by mutual respect, where each small gesture carried meaning, and the boy's tentative engagement hinted at a fragile beginning, a spark that had the potential to grow, all under the watchful, steady, and unobtrusive presence of Maya Brooks, whose patience and insight had begun to turn silence into communication. And in that quiet exchange, Ethan felt the profound weight of gratitude, humility, and awe, knowing that he was witnessing the very first step in a journey that money could never buy, a connection forged purely from understanding, trust, and the courage to simply be present. The following afternoon arrived wrapped in golden sunlight that spilled through the towering windows of the hotel lounge, painting long ribbons of light across the polished floor. Ethan found himself returning earlier than usual, something his assistants would have considered impossible just weeks ago. Meetings worth millions waited on his calendar, executives filled his inbox, and investors expected his attention, yet none of it seemed as important as the quiet corner where Noah sat. The boy was already there, small fingers resting against the edge of the table, his eyes fixed on the entrance as if searching for something or someone. Ethan noticed it immediately. For years, Noah had ignored nearly everyone around him. He rarely acknowledged new faces. He rarely anticipated anything at all. Yet now there was expectation in his posture, subtle but undeniable. Then Maya appeared. Her dark curls were pulled neatly back beneath her uniform, and she carried no tray this time, just a folded napkin and a gentle smile. She walked toward the table with the same calm confidence she always carried, neither hurried nor hesitant. Noah's eyes followed her every step. The movement was so small most people would never have noticed. Ethan did, and it nearly stopped his heart. Maya sat down without speaking. She unfolded the napkin and revealed something simple. A small pencil and a blank piece of paper. Noah stared. She placed the pencil between them and began sketching a rough outline of a cloud. Nothing fancy, nothing impressive, just a cloud floating above a stick figure standing on grass. Then she slid the paper slightly closer to Noah. Not as a request, not as an instruction, merely an invitation. Several seconds passed. The hotel around them continued its rhythm. Coffee machines hissed softly. Distant conversations floated through the air. Silverware clinked against porcelain. Yet at that table, the world seemed quieter. Noah slowly reached for the pencil. Ethan felt his breath catch. The boy's hand trembled slightly before touching the wood. Then, carefully, Noah drew a single line extending from the cloud. Another line followed. Then another. Within minutes, rain appeared beneath the cloud. Maya smiled warmly. She picked up the pencil again and added a tiny umbrella above the stick figure. Noah watched closely. For the first time Ethan could remember, his son looked engaged rather than withdrawn, interested rather than distant, present rather than lost. The simple drawing evolved slowly. Noah added a small bird. Maya added a sun peeking from behind the cloud. Noah added another bird. Back and forth they went, building something together without exchanging a single word. It was not the drawing that mattered. It was the connection. Ethan could see it forming like a bridge stretching across a canyon that had separated his son from the world for years. The realization hit him harder than any business setback ever had. He had spent years searching for breakthrough treatments, revolutionary programs, miracle solutions. He had looked for complexity because complexity was what he understood. Yet Maya kept showing him something entirely different. Human connection did not begin with solutions. It began with trust. Later that evening, after Noah had left with his father, Ethan found Maya organizing menus near the reception area. The warm lighting softened the room around them. For a moment, he simply stood there, unsure how to begin. That feeling alone was unfamiliar. Ethan Sterling was never unsure. Finally, he spoke. "How are you doing this?" Maya looked up. "Doing what?" "Getting through to him." Her expression remained calm. "I am not trying to get through to him." Ethan frowned slightly. "Then what are you doing?" Maya folded a menu and placed it carefully into a stack. "I am meeting him where he already is." The answer lingered between them. Simple, honest, powerful. Ethan glanced toward the empty table where Noah had spent the afternoon. Everyone else tried to pull him into their world. Maya nodded softly. Sometimes people just need someone willing to step into theirs. Ethan fell silent. The words settled deep inside him because they carried a truth he could not ignore. For years he had been trying to fix his son. Maya was trying to understand him. And perhaps that difference changed everything. As the evening lights shimmered against the glass walls overlooking Manhattan, Ethan realized something else. Noah had not simply responded to Maya. He had been waiting for someone like her all along. Someone patient enough to listen before speaking. Someone kind enough to accept silence without fear. Someone willing to sit down and stay. The next morning, sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Manhattan lounge, casting long, warm beams across the polished wood floors and reflecting softly off the crystal vases that lined the edges of the room. Ethan Sterling arrived earlier than usual, his steps quieter than the bustling hotel staff around him, a deliberate choice to observe the small corner where Noah had settled. The boy was seated as before, tiny hands resting on the edge of the table, eyes tracking the movements of the staff with a careful, discerning gaze that seemed to weigh every motion. Maya Brooks entered silently, carrying a small box of colored pencils and a fresh sketch pad, her presence understated yet commanding the attention of the boy without a single word. She placed the supplies gently on the table, tilting the pad slightly toward Noah, and simply sat, maintaining a calm, inviting posture that encouraged observation rather than demand. Noah's lips pressed together in concentration as he glanced at the array of colors, the hesitation in his movements replaced gradually by curiosity. Ethan watched from a distance, noticing how the boy leaned forward, a flicker of recognition and trust crossing his features. No instructions were given, no expectations stated, yet the silent communication between them seemed to stretch across the years of isolation that had previously defined Noah's interactions. Slowly, Noah reached out and picked up a blue pencil, his fingers tightening briefly around it, then loosening as he tested its weight and texture. Maya mirrored his actions subtly, selecting a red pencil and beginning to sketch a simple tree beside the figure that Noah had started the previous day. The movement was mirrored, not enforced, creating an unspoken rhythm between them. Ethan felt the tension in his chest shift, the anxiety that had gripped him for years beginning to loosen, replaced by something akin to awe. He realized that the quiet patience of this young woman, her willingness to simply share the moment, was achieving more than any intervention he had previously sought. Noah added leaves to the tree, pausing to consider the placement, then smiled faintly as Maya added a small bird perched among the branches. The interaction, silent yet charged with meaning, seemed to fill the room with a gentle energy, a sense of progress measured not in words but in shared experience and mutual respect. Ethan's mind wandered briefly to all the specialists, the programs, the high-tech solutions he had engaged over the years, each promising breakthroughs that never materialized. None had produced even a fraction of the trust and engagement that Noah now demonstrated with Maya. The boy's eyes met hers for a brief moment, a spark of recognition and understanding passing silently between them, a connection forged not through instruction but through presence. As the minutes stretched into an hour, Noah's confidence grew incrementally. He added a small sun to the scene, then a winding path beneath the tree, each addition a testament to his engagement and willingness to participate in the world around him. Ethan remained quiet, allowing the moment to unfold, feeling the swell of pride and humility at once, understanding more fully the subtle power of empathy, patience, and attentiveness. The room hummed softly with the ambient sounds of morning service, the gentle clinking of cups, the quiet steps of staff, the distant murmur of conversations. Yet the space around the boy and Maya seemed suspended, a bubble of calm focus and connection. By the time the sunlight shifted toward the windows, painting golden lines across Noah's sketchpad, Ethan recognized that something extraordinary had taken root. A bridge had formed between silence and expression, between isolation and engagement, and it had been built not by directives or interventions, but by the simple act of sitting, sharing space, and patiently offering understanding. Noah looked up at Maya again, his face illuminated by the sunlight, a small, genuine smile spreading across his features. For the first time in years, he had chosen to participate willingly, to communicate without coercion, and Ethan, witnessing the unfolding transformation, felt a profound gratitude for the young woman who had become the quiet architect of his son's first steps toward connection, understanding that patience, attentiveness, and empathy could achieve what wealth and authority never could. 3 days later, something happened that Ethan Sterling could not explain. It was not dramatic. It was not loud. Most people in the lounge did not even notice it. Yet for a father who had spent years watching every expression on his son's face, it felt larger than any headline his company had ever made. Noah arrived carrying something in his hands. A small sketchbook. He held it carefully against his chest as he entered the hotel with his father. The morning air outside had been cool, and traces of sunlight reflected off the glass towers of Manhattan, but Noah seemed focused on only one thing. His eyes immediately searched the room. Not for a seat, not for a distraction, for Maya. Ethan noticed it before anyone else did. The boy's gaze moved across the lounge until it found her near the coffee station organizing menus. The moment Noah saw her, his shoulders relaxed. It was subtle, almost invisible, but it was there. Maya looked up and smiled warmly. She did not rush toward him. She did not make a scene. She simply waved once. Noah responded by lifting the sketchbook slightly. The gesture lasted less than 2 seconds. Yet Ethan froze. For years, his son had rarely initiated interactions with anyone. Even family members struggled to receive acknowledgement. Now he was voluntarily showing someone something important to him. Maya walked over and sat beside him at the familiar table near the window. The city skyline stretched beyond the glass, sunlight dancing across distant buildings, while soft piano music drifted through hidden speakers overhead. Noah slowly opened the sketchbook. Page after page revealed drawings. Trees, birds, clouds, small pathways winding through. Imaginary parks. Most were simple. Some were unfinished. Others contained tiny details that revealed hours of concentration. Maya turned each page carefully, treating every drawing like it belonged in an art gallery. She never exaggerated her reactions. She never praised him loudly. She simply paid attention. Real attention. The kind many people forgot how to give. Noah watched her face closely as she studied each page. Then something unexpected happened. He pointed to one drawing. A small bird sitting beneath a tree. Maya leaned closer. "You like this one?" she asked softly. Noah nodded. Ethan felt his pulse quicken. The nod itself was not new, but the intention behind it was. Noah was communicating, sharing, participating. Maya smiled. "I like it too." The boy's fingers remained on the page for several moments. Then he carefully turned to another drawing. This one showed a large tree beside a winding path. A tiny figure stood underneath the branches. Maya studied it quietly. "That looks peaceful." Noah stared at the picture. Then he looked toward the window, then back at the drawing. The exchange lasted only seconds, yet Maya seemed to understand exactly what he meant. She nodded. Sometimes quiet places feel safe. Noah's eyes widened slightly, not because she guessed correctly, because she understood. Ethan watched from nearby, his emotions growing heavier with every passing minute. He had spent years trying to unlock conversations. Maya seemed to be building something deeper. Trust. And trust was creating opportunities for communication to emerge naturally rather than being forced. As the afternoon continued, Noah remained engaged longer than usual. He pointed at drawings, shared observations through gestures, even maintained eye contact for brief moments. Each interaction seemed small on its own. Together they formed something extraordinary. A foundation, a bridge, a beginning. Later that day, after Noah and Ethan returned home, Ethan found himself sitting alone in his penthouse office overlooking the city. Financial reports covered his desk. His phone displayed dozens of unread messages. Yet his attention remained fixed on a single memory. Noah lifting. That sketchbook. Noah wanting to share. Noah searching for Maya the moment he entered the building. Ethan stared out at the Manhattan skyline glowing beneath the setting sun and realized a difficult truth. His son was not changing because someone taught him how to speak. His son was changing because someone finally made him feel heard long before he ever said a word. The following week brought a change that no report, no specialist, and no prediction could have prepared Ethan for. It began with absence. Maya was not in the lounge. A scheduling conflict had placed her in another section of the hotel for the morning, and for the first time since their unusual friendship began, Noah arrived to find the familiar table empty. The sunlight still streamed through the glass walls. The piano music still drifted softly through the room. The scent of fresh coffee and warm pastries still floated through the air. Everything looked the same, yet something was different. Noah stood beside his chair for several seconds instead of sitting down. His eyes moved across the room, searching. Ethan noticed immediately. The boy checked the coffee station, then the reception desk, then the hallway leading toward the restaurant. The disappointment that crossed his face lasted only a moment. But for a father who had spent years studying every expression, it felt impossible to miss. Noah finally sat down, placing his sketchbook on the table without opening it. Ethan lowered himself into the chair across from him. Normally, he would have remained nearby and observed from a distance. Today felt different. For several minutes, neither of them moved. Outside, yellow taxis rolled through the streets below. Sunlight reflected off neighboring skyscrapers. The city continued its endless motion while father and son sat quietly together. Ethan looked at the closed sketchbook, then at Noah, then back at the sketchbook. Slowly he reached forward. "Would you like to show me?" he asked gently. Noah looked at him. Not through him. Not past him. At him. The moment lasted barely 2 seconds. Yet Ethan felt something shift. The boy lowered his gaze and carefully pushed the sketchbook across the table. Ethan swallowed hard. Years earlier, he would have considered this impossible. He opened the first page carefully. Tree sketches, birds, clouds, familiar images. Then he turned another page. and another, until he stopped. In the center of one drawing stood 3 figures beneath a large tree. One was clearly Noah. One looked like Maya. The third figure stood slightly apart from them. Taller, broader shoulders. Ethan stared at the image. His chest tightened. Noah watched him closely. Ethan pointed gently at the tallest figure. "Is that me?" Noah did not nod immediately. His eyes moved to the drawing, then back to his father. Slowly, almost cautiously, he nodded once. Ethan could not speak for several seconds. He simply looked at the picture while emotions gathered inside him. For years he had feared that Noah existed in a world where he could never truly reach him. Yet here, on a simple sheet of paper, his son had quietly included him. Not outside the scene. Not missing from it. Present. The realization hit harder than any business triumph ever had. Just then Maya appeared at the far end of the lounge carrying a stack of menus. Noah noticed her instantly. For the first time, Ethan witnessed something remarkable. Noah smiled before she even reached the table. It was not a large smile. It was not dramatic. But it was real. Maya paused when she saw them sitting together. Her eyes moved from Noah to Ethan to the open sketchbook. She seemed to understand immediately that something important had happened. She approached quietly and sat down beside them. Noah turned the sketchbook toward her. Maya studied the drawing carefully. Her smile softened. "This looks like a very nice day," she said. Noah looked at the picture, then at his father, then at Maya. The silence that followed felt different from every silence that had come before. It no longer felt empty. It felt full. Full of trust. Full of comfort. Full of possibilities that had once seemed unreachable. Ethan looked out across the Manhattan skyline, glowing beneath the afternoon sun, and realized that the greatest breakthrough was not waiting somewhere in the future. It had already begun. Not through pressure. Not through expectations. But through connection. And for the first time in many years, hope no longer felt fragile. It felt real. It was a quiet afternoon when Maya arrived early, the city sun spilling golden light across the lounge and illuminating the familiar corner where Noah sat with his sketchbook open. Ethan Sterling had arrived before her, standing slightly behind the boy, a tension in his shoulders replaced by cautious anticipation, knowing that today might reveal more than any previous attempt. Noah's fingers traced the edges of the page, his small movements deliberate, eyes shifting between the drawings he had made and the figure of his father. Maya approached with calm precision, a stack of fresh colored pencils in one hand, her movements silent against the polished floor. She did not speak immediately, allowing Noah to settle into the routine that had begun to form over the past week, the silent rhythm of their interactions carrying weight far greater than any conversation could have. Slowly, she set the pencils down and opened the sketchbook beside him, leaving space for her own drawings, signaling that participation was voluntary, that collaboration was not a demand but an invitation. Noah glanced at her briefly, then returned his attention to his page, a tiny smile tugging at the corners of his lips, the first evidence of genuine excitement rather than hesitation. Ethan observed the exchange, feeling a swell of emotions he could not easily name: pride, relief, and awe intertwining as he realized the depth of patience and understanding Maya had cultivated. The boy began drawing a small bridge between 2 trees, his lines careful yet expressive, and Maya mirrored the gesture on her own page, adding a few tiny flowers along the path, her actions gentle and unassuming, inviting Noah to explore and imagine without pressure. The sun shifted slightly, casting long shadows across the table and highlighting the subtle expressions on Noah's face as he looked up at Maya for guidance, then back to his father for approval. The bridge on the page mirroring a bridge forming in reality between his isolated world and the people who cared for him. Minutes stretched into an hour as father and son became increasingly comfortable with the shared silence, punctuated only by the occasional scratch of pencil on paper. Ethan's chest tightened when Noah handed him a drawing, pointing with small fingers at the tiny sun painted above the trees, the implicit question hanging in the air. "Do you see this too?" Ethan nodded slowly, recognizing that the connection between them was growing, not through words, but through trust, patience, and empathy, the quiet moments building a foundation that could support expression far beyond anything he had imagined possible. Maya's eyes softened as she glanced from Noah to Ethan, understanding that her role was not to instruct but to accompany, to provide presence that allowed both father and son to engage without fear or expectation. Noah's movements became more assured, each stroke on the page a demonstration of confidence earned in the safe space created by her consistent attention. The lounge around them continued its hum, guests moving in and out, servers attending tables, the faint melody of piano playing somewhere overhead, yet all of it receded into the background as the trio existed within their own carefully nurtured rhythm. Eventually, Noah lifted his gaze and spoke a single word, not forced, not rehearsed, but emerging naturally. Tree. It was brief, simple, yet monumental, echoing in the minds of everyone who had watched him struggle in silence for so long. Ethan's eyes filled, tears unbidden but welcome, as he realized that this was the beginning of Noah discovering his voice, discovering a way to connect with the world, guided gently by the presence of a woman who had chosen to sit, wait, and understand, showing him that speaking could be safe, that being seen could be enough, and that patience could yield miracles in the quietest of moments. As the afternoon sun dipped lower over Manhattan, painting golden streaks across the lounge, a sense of quiet anticipation settled in the familiar corner where Noah and Maya sat together. The sketchbook lay open between them, pages filled with delicate drawings that had become Noah's language, a bridge that connected him to a world he had once avoided. Entirely. Ethan Sterling stood nearby, hands clasped loosely in front of him, watching with a mixture of awe and disbelief as the boy traced lines and shapes, each movement deliberate and confident, his eyes reflecting curiosity and engagement rather than hesitation. Maya observed silently, her presence steady and reassuring, her dark eyes following every subtle gesture, encouraging without pressing, guiding without demanding, allowing Noah to navigate his own expressions while knowing she was there to support him. Outside, the distant hum of traffic and the occasional honk of a taxi blended into a soothing background that framed the intimate scene, the city moving in its relentless rhythm while the quiet tableau unfolded within the lounge. Noah paused on a page, his small fingers lingering over a half-drawn bridge that connected two figures, then glanced at Maya, seeking affirmation, and she simply smiled gently, her nod enough to communicate understanding and acceptance, no words necessary. Ethan felt the weight of the moment settle in his chest, a combination of relief and profound gratitude, as he realized that the connection between his son and the world was unfolding not through coercion, not through commands or schedules, but through the steady patience and empathy of someone who understood the language of silence. Noah picked up a green pencil and added leaves to a tree, his strokes more confident than they had been before, and Maya mirrored his actions subtly on her own page, creating a synchronized rhythm of shared attention and mutual respect. Each page turned revealed progress, a story being told in images, a conversation without sound, and Ethan could feel the barriers of the past falling away, replaced by a fragile yet tangible sense of trust and understanding. The boy's eyes lifted occasionally to his father, meeting Ethan's gaze with moments of connection that had been rare and fleeting in the past, and each one was a small victory, a step toward bridging a gap that had seemed insurmountable. The lounge, with its warm light, soft piano, and quiet energy, became a sanctuary, a space where Noah could explore, create, and communicate, and where Ethan could witness the emergence of a voice that had been silenced for years. Maya's hands remained steady, her calm influence a guiding force that allowed the boy to find his confidence, and she never spoke above a gentle whisper, letting actions and presence convey reassurance more powerfully than any words ever could. Minutes turned into an hour, and with each passing moment, Noah's engagement deepened. He added birds to the branches, paths winding beneath trees, and even the smallest details showed an awareness of the world around him, a willingness to participate, to be seen, to interact. Ethan's heart swelled as he realized that the patience, empathy, and understanding Maya had consistently offered were unlocking something within his son that no expert, no program, and no resource could achieve. The city outside continued its motion, indifferent to the quiet revolution unfolding within the lounge. Yet Ethan knew that within these walls, a transformation had begun, subtle yet profound, a testament to the power of listening, presence, and human connection. Noah turned a page and paused. Then, without prompting, traced a small figure in the corner with careful fingers, finally lifting his gaze to Maya and Ethan simultaneously. A moment of shared recognition and acknowledgement that spoke volumes. Ethan exhaled slowly, his chest lighter than it had been in years, understanding fully that his son's first real steps toward expression and communication were happening here, guided not by authority, pressure, or instruction, but by the simple act of sitting, observing, and being present. Maya's quiet, unwavering patience had created a space where trust could flourish, and for the first time in many years, Ethan felt hope not as a fleeting thought, but as a living, tangible reality, a promise that his son's voice, once lost in silence, was beginning to emerge into the world with confidence and authenticity. The late afternoon sunlight filtered through the tall windows, casting long shadows across the lounge where Ethan Sterling, Noah, and Maya Brooks sat together. The sketchbook between them had become a vessel of communication, pages filled with drawings that spoke louder than words could, a language of trust and understanding that neither time nor silence could diminish. Noah carefully traced the lines of a bridge connecting two figures, his small fingers steady and deliberate, each stroke reflecting concentration and confidence that had grown over the past weeks. Maya observed quietly, her presence calm and unwavering, offering subtle guidance through gentle gestures rather than words, allowing Noah to take the lead while feeling supported, her patience a steady rhythm that encouraged his self-expression. Ethan watched, a mixture of awe, relief, and deep gratitude washing over him as he realized that the boys' engagement and initiative had emerged not from instruction or pressure, but from trust and presence. Around them, the soft hum of the hotel carried on, servers moving efficiently through the lounge, the faint aroma of freshly brewed coffee lingering in the air, and distant city noises drifting through open windows. But inside this small corner, time seemed suspended, measured only by the unfolding interactions between the boy and the woman who had earned his attention. Noah turned a page in the sketchbook and presented a scene depicting a sunlit garden with figures playing beneath trees, one figure clearly representing himself, another representing Maya, and a third figure standing slightly apart, taller and broader, clearly representing his father. Ethan's chest tightened at the sight, a lump forming in his throat as he understood the significance. His son had not only acknowledged him, but included him intentionally, a silent bridge extending beyond the paper into reality. Maya's eyes met Ethan's briefly, a subtle nod conveying understanding that her work had guided a profound transformation without overt instruction, showing that empathy and presence could unlock what authority and expertise could not. Noah's gaze lifted to his father, and for the first time in years, he spoke, softly yet unmistakably. "Son." The single word hung in the air, simple yet monumental, signaling the first step in a growing ability to share his world, his thoughts, and his feelings. Ethan's eyes filled with tears he did not attempt to hide, his heart swelling with a mixture of pride and humility as he reached across the table to rest a hand gently over Noah's. The warmth of the gesture was met with a small, deliberate squeeze, an acknowledgement of connection that spoke volumes beyond language. Maya smiled softly, her presence steady, knowing her role was complete yet ongoing, having created a space where Noah felt seen, understood, and safe to explore his voice. The golden light of the late afternoon reflected off the pages, highlighting each drawing, each line a testament to the progress and potential that had been nurtured over weeks of patience and quiet attention. Ethan looked at both of them, realizing that true breakthroughs did not always arrive with fanfare or complexity, but through sustained care, presence, and understanding that allowed a person to emerge at their own pace. In that lounge, surrounded by the sounds and rhythms of life continuing outside, a family began to take new shape. A boy discovering his voice, a father learning to listen and trust, and a woman whose quiet empathy had transformed silence into dialogue, isolation into connection, and hesitation into the first notes of a song that could finally be shared freely and fully.